name's Brian, and I make stuff. I don't think a lot of people consider my work to be necessarily conceptual art, which I consider it to be, but they just kind of see the craft side of it. The first time I crocheted, I made those crocheted beer can hats in the 70s, and I made some for the year 2000. Budweiser had a Millennium Edition, and that kind of turned into the crocheted cankini. That's the red, white, and blue cankini. I'd make them in different styles. Just another cankini. It's a Grain Belt, which is a beer from the Midwest. So the Midwestern girls tend to like that one. Generally only use beer cans because that tends to be more of a masculine, it just seems more of a masculine imagery. I don't use soda cans or any kind of thing like that. The red, white, and blue cankini is popular on the 4th of July for some reason. I've only made one of these, so which is the mankini. The hams cans, of course, go over the butt cheeks, you know, referencing hams. It's considered the mud flap halter. So the halter top, of course, references a black mud flap, and the mud flap girl is on the halter top. So that's the crocheted mud flap halter.
It took me years to even start calling myself an artist. It was really and maybe it's just because I didn't really necessarily consider what I do art. This is the mud flap girl Afghan. Probably took, I think I worked on it for over 2 years. It's crocheting with the masculine image of the mud flap girl.
Between my busy career as a wrestler, I make stuff. When I first started doing this kind of work, I first learned how to quilt. I had a quilt that my grandmother made. She had a crazy quilt, and I just loved it. And it started getting really frayed, and I just decided to go to the library and look up quilting, and I learned how to quilt from there. People always kind of thought it was funny that I would sit around and watch football or wrestling or something and quilt. And so I kind of started thinking about quilting and traditional craft work and how it was stereotypically female that did this kind of work. And so I started thinking of using masculine imagery in my quilting.
Lately I've been mostly working with needlepoint, or I guess it's called cross stitch. I think the first thing I made was I've been making some bracelets, and I've been using a lot of stuff with gun imagery. This is a double barrel shotgun with western snaps on it. On the back, it's kind of a pretty feminine pink colored fabric. I made some guitar straps. This one for the name it says Curses with some pretty shiny fabric. Blue on the outside. On the back is a skull and crossbones, masculine, of course. The guns are actually they're Colts, and the name of the guns are Peacemakers, which I found amusing. These are all historical guns that won the West. So like the Henry repeating rifle, the Sharps, the Winchester, and the colors. I just use the colors because they reference the guitar.
I don't necessarily think I have influences. I think I influenced myself. It wasn't really, I didn't have to force myself to make art. It was a compulsion to do so.
I think in 2000 I got a calendar from my father in Minnesota. It was called Fox Star Gems, and it was this calendar of all these women in different hunting and fishing poses, which I thought was absolutely marvelous. So I did a commemorative plate series on that. One of my favorites is evening trout fishing on the big lake, it says. This one says, practice, practice, practice. The open plains consistent windage factor. I don't even know what that means. This, for some reason, is another, I just like the drawing for some reason. The woman's eyes look really shady. This is probably my favorite of the whole series, and the quote is, trout can be tricky, but not for Nicky.
I haven't made a lot of sales, and I don't think my stuff sells particularly well because I tend to price it. Well, it's just priced high. Basically, my work it costs a lot because it takes a lot of time to make. It takes 100 hours to make. You know, $10 an hour is $1,000. So, did I do the math right on that?
This is a latch hook rug, which I did a lot when I was a kid. Basically, it's a little hook, and you're just putting each piece of yarn on. You can see some of the back of it there. I based it on a cover of a Western novel, which isn't completely original. It's been done before, but I like the idea, so I took it. The book was originally called The Deserters, but I couldn't fit the S in there. This is another latch hook, which I did for a 4th of July show. I used this image just to kind of dialogue about America's obsession with guns and killing things. It's a lot more subtle than I thought it would be. A lot of people don't notice that there's a shadowy figure down here in the corner pointing a gun, and also in the eagle's breast is some blood splatter with a bullet coming out of his chest. I go to craft stores a lot, and a lot of it's, a lot of the imagery is just really kind of blatant. It seems like American propaganda, which I find kind of offensive, so I don't mind subverting those images either. This is another latch hook, which I stole from a kit. The original imagery was this cute little kitten batting a ball around, but I kind of thought it would be funny if I kind of put a human head in there and the cat sucking the eyeball out of the head, because that's what most cute cats would do if their master died. They'd probably eat you.
I've never made art to be specifically in shows. I make art that I enjoy looking at, just me. For the most part, I don't go out and sell myself to be in shows. If somebody asks me to show my work, I'll show it. But otherwise, I'm pretty much happy just hanging on my walls looking at it myself. I don't put it out there. I don't want to work at showing my art, because when it becomes work, then it stops being fun.
I think it was back when that big priest scandal was happening, when all these men were getting accused of pedophilia, and they were always like white balding white men, and they always said the same thing, and I always just thought they were blowhards. So I made this a balding white man. His mouth was an asshole, and it's also a whistle, so he says the same thing every time. I did put holes in his ears too, so I could change the note a little bit.
Yeah, with the traditional feminine or stereotypical feminine craft work, I impose or juxtapose masculine imagery in my artwork. So a lot of the work I do these days does relate to my own issues with gender and masculinity and femininity.
Oh, the work gloves. I actually worked in them for a couple of months, got them a little dirty. I took out all the fabric and then sewed in this lace, so they are my lace work gloves.
My parents never forced me to make art. I think they more saw art as a hobby or a craft. It took a long time for me to get over that as a kid too, to actually consider myself an artist. That's why I say I make stuff instead of make art. The quilts is, I tried to use a traditional female pinwheel pattern, and the mud flap girl is what you see generally on semis. It's the silhouette of the naked female, and I used it, and I put each one on an individual square, and then kind of spun it like it's a pinwheel, which is a traditional female patchwork pattern. And then I did some fancy quilting. Quilting is the needle or the thread that goes in and out of the pieces, and then around the border is it's kind of a truck tire pattern. This is the back of the mud flap girl quilt, which not a lot of folks get to see, but it kind of it shows you the fancier quilt work. You can see the stitches better from the back. Yeah, I hope you like my stuff. I guess if you don't, I'm not going to stop making it, because once again, I just like making stuff. It's what I do.
I don't think I'd enjoy life without it. It's really been, it's a big part of what I do. And it's a big part of what I think about most days. So I hope you're happy. Thanks.
Wasted days and the nerves are sharp. Stay calm.
Going down to Mexico.
I just drive, I just drive, I just drive.
Going down to Mexico. I'm gonna get my gas out of Texaco. I'm going down to Mexico. I'm gonna get my gas out of Texaco.
I'm slow and open the door. I know I hit the floor now. Cold. Am I dead? Am I alive? I'm gonna die. Whole thing was an urban myth. Ground dry as a witch's tit. No
Going
gas.
down to Mexico.
No
I'm
moss,
gonna
no
get my
gas,
gas
no
out of
more.
Texaco. Never gonna stop, I'm never gonna